must apologize. I was having computer problems when I did Paper Piecing Introduction Part 1 and didn't cover cutting your fabric for paper piecing. I did have it in the original video, but when I had to redo it, it got omitted, so I do apologize. So here you go without further ado. This is my favorite way of cutting out the fabric for paper piecing. Rather than cutting big squares and rectangles and having a lot of waste, I like to follow the pattern piece. In this particular pattern, we have 4 triangles and 2 larger triangles, but actually only 2 different types or sizes of pieces. So I've cut this out along the seam lines to get my pattern. So let's put these other things away and concentrate on the 2 pieces we need. Now I'm going to trim this along the cutting edge to make sure that we're somewhat accurate. Again, we don't have to do precision cutting in paper piecing. This is just to make it a little bit easier for you to place your pieces on your paper. Now I have to point out that I ran this pattern on a plain piece of paper in order to make these patterns. Now this pattern piece, there is a left and a right. So we have to make sure when we cut it, our fabric is face to face or wrong side to wrong side, so that we have both orientations after it's cut. Now the triangular pieces, however, are all the same. There's no left or right. They're either up or down, but it doesn't change the orientation. So we can stack our fabrics, cut all 4 at the same time. Another thing to keep in mind when we're cutting these pieces, we're going to be cutting them larger than the pattern piece is on the paper. So we're actually cutting a 1/2 inch larger all the way around, and that will give us allowance for slightly being off on our pattern placements, and also gives us allowance for our seams. So in preparation for cutting piece 5 and 6, we have our fabric placed wrong sides together, and that gets us both a left and a right hand side facing block. We're going to place the piece about a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the fabric, and then taking our ruler, putting a 1/2 inch line on our edge of our fabric, we're going to trim out the pattern piece. We'll put this aside and use it for later, because remember, we can use those small pieces. Now we're going to go ahead and cut the other side. Again, we have our ruler a 1/2 inch away from the pattern template, and we're going to trim that. And remember, we're not doing precision cutting. We're just trying to get the pieces cut to the approximate shape of the portion of the pattern that they're going to fill. Let's cut this dog ear off here. And now we have pieces 5 and 6 cut and ready to go. Now if we bring our pattern back, we can lay these pieces on our paper piecing pattern and see that we have indeed got the orientation correct. So when it comes time to put those pieces on, we won't have to worry about not having cut them correctly. Now when it comes to the triangles, we can just stack the fabric pieces on top of each other. Just like that. We don't have to worry about having them wrong sides together or right sides together. We can just stack them any which way because there is, again, no left or right on these squares. Now, when we were doing the larger triangle, pieces 5 and 6, remember how the paper moved? Here's a tip. If you take a piece of Scotch tape and stick it in a loop on the back of your pattern piece, that will keep your paper pattern from having a static buildup from your ruler, and will keep the ruler from moving your pattern piece while you're cutting. Now, if we take a close look at this, remember we can use these scraps in a lot of ways. So you want to place your pattern piece as close to the 1/2 inch away from the bottom and the sides as you can, because now you have all that extra area that you can use those pieces for something else. So paper piecing at one time was thought of as a waste of fabric. But you can take those little pieces and use them over and over and make something really pretty out of them. So don't throw the small pieces away. So we have both sides cut. We had kept our piece approximately 1/2 inch from the bottom. We're going to cut off the dog ear from this one side. We already had the dog ear taken care of by the way we placed our paper originally, so we're good to go. So now we can put the corresponding clips on each of the fabric pieces and then put them in our little pizza box for safekeeping from when we're ready to start sewing our blocks.